Hello, this is McD the Beast, and this is McD Sports 4 coming to you today with my reaction to the AP Top 25. Before I continue, hit that thumbs up button. Please subscribe to the channel. We're really close to 200. I would love to hit that 200 subscriber goal by the next week. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you're not subscribed already. So the way this video works, if you haven't watched it before, is I usually for the AP Top 25 poll on the left, which you see here on the left, and then on the right on your screen, you see my top 25 poll, which is the better one out of the two, just because it makes more sense to me. So basically, I just compare the two polls, the AP top 25 to my top 25, and then basically talk about each team some in the top 25. So without further ado, let's get into it. A few quick notes about the top 25, comparing my top 25 to the AP top 25. Me and the AP top 25 had the same 17 teams in the top 17. Kind of in a little bit of a different order, but the same top 17 teams is in the AP pool, is also in my pool, and the same top 10 teams are also in each other's pools, but kind of in a different order, as you can see here already on the screen. So without further ado, let's get into it. I'll go through the AP pool first. Number 1, Alabama. Number 2, Clemson. Number 3, Ohio State. Number 3, Georgia. Number 5, LSU. Ohio State and Georgia received the same amount of votes, so they are in a tie. So both of them will be ranked number 3 this week. LSU, they just missed out the cut from being a third team that will have that number 3 ranking. And all 5 of these teams did get first place votes, by the way, in this week's AP poll. And I also had the same top 5, but in a different order. Number 1, Georgia. They have the best win in college football against Notre Dame. Until I see otherwise, I'm leaving Georgia on number 1. Number 2, Ohio State. Ohio State, their resume got a lot better. A win over Michigan State, which is a quality win, in Cincinnati upsetting UCF. I think people look at Cincinnati now as a legit contender to represent the Group of 5 in a New Year's Six Bowl. And Ohio State shut them out 42-0. More in Cincinnati here in a minute, but Ohio State's resume got a lot better this weekend. Alabama 3. Alabama, I mean, they have wins over Ole Miss and South Carolina. They have Texas A&M coming up this week. If they could get the win there, that would be probably the first true quality win. It's on the road. They also play Duke, and Duke actually looks like a decent team, so that might be a quality win as well. But Alabama, they have a few decent wins, but I mean, nothing really too impressive on the resume. I put LSU on number 4. They still have that win over Texas. That win might go down some if Texas loses to Oklahoma this week in the Red River Shootout, or whatever they call it now, Red River Rivalry. And by the way, there will be a preview of that matchup tomorrow on the McD Sports 4 YouTube channel, so stay tuned for that. But LSU right now, they probably have the second best win in college football on the road against Texas. So I'm keeping them at number 4. It looks like they found their defense against Utah State, another quality win in my opinion. And then number 5, Clemson. I moved them up a spot. They didn't play last week. A lot of people thought that I was insane dropping Clemson outside of my top 5 and putting them at number 6. Well, they're in my top 5 this week at number 5. If you look at Clemson's resume, it just does not look like a good resume. I mean, their best win's Texas A&M, but they're probably going to lose this week to Alabama, and that's just going to weaken the resume. And Clemson, they get Florida State this week, so that's basically just a decent win at best. So that's my top 5, and that's the AP top 5. Here's 6 through 10 for you. Number 6, the AP pool, they have Oklahoma. Number 7, Florida. Number 8, Wisconsin. Number 9, Notre Dame. And number 10, Penn State. I have Oklahoma at 6 as well. Oklahoma doesn't really have a quality win yet, or like a true good win. But they beat Texas this week in the Red River Shootout. They will have a quality win on their resume. But their best win so far this season is probably Texas Tech. And Texas Tech's actually probably a quality win at this point, because they did go out and beat Oklahoma State in an upset. Number 7, Penn State. Listen, Penn State and Wisconsin kind of go in the same boat. Penn State doesn't have as much as a quality win as Wisconsin does, but Penn State, I mean, they look like a top 10 team. Okay, I'm being completely honest with you. They're looking like a top 10 team. 59-0 over Maryland to me is impressive. 35-7 against Purdue. I didn't like the 17-10 against Pitt, but Pitt's actually looking like a decent team. They beat UCF. I mean, Penn State, they'll rack up some pretty decent wins on their schedule, and they're not just beating these teams, they're blowing them out. So, Penn State's number 7, Wisconsin number 8. They pitched 3 shutouts, yes, and then they also beat Michigan at home 35-14. That's really the only true big quality win. I would say Northwestern, but Northwestern, that game, surprisingly, Northwestern's not that good this year. And then you pitch, I think, another shutout this week against Kent State. So Wisconsin's number 8 in my pool, also number 8 in the AP pool. I put Florida at 9, and before Florida fans go down the comment section and complain saying I have Florida too low. I did have them at 13 last week, so I did move them into my top 10. The AP pool had them up at 9 last week. They only moved them up 2 spots. I moved them up 4 spots. That was a good win by Florida last week against Auburn. I know it was at home, but still, that Auburn in my pool was number 4. I think that was a very good win, very quality win right there. So that was a resume booster. The Miami win and the Kentucky wins, though, aren't looking that hot right now. I mean, it's not completely Florida's fault, but you barely got out of those games alive. So that's why I'm keeping Florida at 9 right now. And then to round out the top 10, Notre Dame. Listen, Notre Dame, I think Notre Dame is a team that's really good. They do have a loss in their schedule, so that's why they're number 10 in my poll. Because to me, they are the best one-loss team out there. They, I think, pitched a shutout against Bowling Green this past weekend. I think it was a shutout. I know they blew them out. They had a pretty good win against Virginia, and they have Michigan coming up. I mean, if Notre Dame could get the wins against Virginia and Michigan, they should be in line for a New Year's Six bowl. They get USC this week. They should win that one. So we'll see what happens with Notre Dame. Here's 11 through 15. Same teams that the AP pool has that I have. The AP pool has at number 11, they have Texas, number 12, Auburn, number 13, Oregon, number 14, Boise State, and number 15, Utah. I have the same 5 teams. I have Utah at 14 and Boise State at 15. More on that in a second. But let's talk about Texas. Texas, you look at their resume. The Oklahoma State win does not look as good right now because Texas Tech beat them. Texas, they have a loss against LSU. Their season's on the line this upcoming Saturday to make the college football playoffs against Oklahoma. If they lose, they're definitely not making the playoffs, in my opinion. But if they win, they still have a shot. And if they do beat Oklahoma, they will move into the top 10 most likely. Just saying. Because Florida and LSU play each other, and whoever loses that game might cancel each other out. Number 12, Auburn. Auburn's ahead of Oregon because of the Week 1 matchup. I almost put Oregon ahead of Auburn, honestly. Auburn still has a good resume, though. Texas A&M on the road, that's a good win. I mean, you blew out Mississippi State. You beat Oregon. They still have a decent resume. They lost a game against Florida that they just couldn't move the ball against them. They still have LSU, Georgia, and Alabama up on their schedule. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Auburn this year. Number 13, Oregon. Listen, I look at Oregon. Outside of the loss to Auburn, their resume is looking pretty impressive. They beat Cal. They hung 77 on a Nevada team that beat Purdue. I mean, they blew out their FCS school. Oregon's looking really impressive. They have a game this week against Colorado, a decent Colorado team, but Oregon is going to come down to the games against Washington and Arizona State. That's going to be the 2 games to watch for Oregon this year. And then 14-15, the AP pool, they have Boise State at 14, Utah at 15. I bet Utah at 14. If you look at Utah, yes, the USC loss isn't the best loss out there, but they did dominate Washington State. They did dominate BYU, a BYU team that did beat USC, by the way. And they did also beat everybody else in their schedule so far. You look at Utah; they beat Northern Illinois. I still think Northern Illinois is going to do well in the MAC conference. At least they had a tough non-conference schedule, but in the MAC, I think Northern Illinois should do well. I'm going to give Utah the benefit of the doubt because they're a Power 5 team over a Group of 5 team. So that's why I have Utah at 14, Boise State at 15. The good news for Boise State is that Florida State did beat North Carolina. Not North Carolina. Yeah, at NC State. I meant NC State, not North Carolina. My apologies there. Florida State, they did beat NC State kind of convincingly, and Boise State did beat Florida State on the road. That is like the one good thing that happened to Boise State's resume. So that's a good resume booster right there. Boise State is the best Group of 5 team right now, and I said it at the begin in the preseason. If Boise State could find a way to beat Florida State, they could run the table and go 13-0. And it looks like that's possibly happening. They have a game against Hawaii this week, a pretty good Hawaii team, I might add. But I think they're going to win that game. I'm just going to come out and say right now, I think Boise State beats Hawaii. That's one of the 20 games we're picking this Wednesday. Stay tuned for that video. But Boise State, I think, is a pretty good team. But I'm going to give Utah the benefit out of the doubt since they're a Power 5 school. And I still think Utah's a good team, by the way, as well. Here's 16 through 20. The AP pool, they have Michigan at 16, Iowa at 17, Arizona State at 18, Wake Forest at 19, and Virginia at 20. I have Michigan at 16, Iowa at 17, Missouri at 18, Arizona State at 19, and Virginia at 20. Michigan, they had a pretty good win against Iowa, and that's why they're ahead of Iowa in the AP pool. They also shut out Rutgers 52-0. And outside of the Wisconsin game, if you look at Michigan's resume, they beat Army, even though that win is not a good win in my opinion. And they did beat Middle Tennessee, probably one of your better teams in the Conference USA. Michigan can't continue winning games. They have Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan State on their schedule. If they could continue winning, if they can win those 4 games, I think there's an argument there. Forget about what happened the first few games, and they could possibly make the playoffs. But they're gonna have to win. I think those 4 games have a shot at the playoffs. Iowa number 17. Iowa's a team I was a bit disappointed in, honestly. I still think they're a pretty good team. I dropped them from 10 to 17. So I dropped them 7 spots. I look at Iowa. I mean, they have Penn State coming up this week at home. That's going to be a big game for them. If they can win that game, I think you can see them back in the top 15. But Iowa is one of those teams. It's going to come down to that Iowa-Wisconsin game, in my opinion. And we're going to see what happens there. I have Missouri at 18. Now, you don't see a lot of polls with Missouri in them. I'm going to make a case for Missouri. I don't know what the hell happened in week 1 against Wyoming. Actually, a 4-1 Wyoming team, so that loss isn't looking as bad as it did in week 1. But they beat South Carolina by 20. They just beat Troy by 32. They're dominating the rest of their opponents out there. I want to say they beat they faced someone else, I think, in the SEC and won as well, if I'm not mistaken. But Missouri's basically blown out all of their opponents outside of week 1. So I think they're like a top 20 team. I put them at number 18. And I think Missouri, Kelly Bryant, he's injured. Listen, I heard the rumor mill has it that he's going to be back this week against Ole Miss, an Ole Miss team that will be a quality win for them. So that's good. And basically, we'll see what happens. But Missouri here, it's loading right now. Missouri has wins against West Virginia. That's the other win they had that was a dominant win. I knew they beat someone else as well that was dominant, and they shut out their FCS opponents. So I don't know what happened against Wyoming in week 1, but since then they're blowing out everybody. Missouri is a top 20 team, and they have, in my opinion, 3 quality wins on their schedule right now. Because let's be honest, Troy is a good team in the Sun Belt, whether you like it or not. They're a good team in the Sun Belt. So Missouri number 18, Arizona State number 19. Arizona State, they have two very good wins on their schedule against Colorado, not Colorado, against Cal and Michigan State. Both on the road, I might add. So those are two very quality wins right there for Arizona State. They did lose, I believe, I want to say to they lost to somebody. Um, I forget who they lost to. They do have a loss in their schedule though, but they have two very quality wins right there. And they basically, they look like a top 25 team in Arizona State. Uh, Here I'll tell you who they lost to, but they look like a top 25 team. Herm Edwards has that team spinning in the right direction. They lost to Colorado, so that's not a bad loss right there. And they have Washington State coming up this upcoming Saturday. And then number 20, I picked Virginia there. Virginia, if you look at their resume, it's a pretty good resume. You lost to Notre Dame. If it wasn't for two fumbles by Bryce Perkins, which I'm not even going to blame him for, I'm going to blame the offensive line for. If you were watching that game would have been 21-20 Notre Dame. So Virginia, in my opinion, is a pretty damn good team. I have them at number 20 right now. They have Miami coming up. If they could go on the road and beat Miami, that's a quality win right there, in my opinion. Here's 21 through 25. AP pool has SMU at 21, Baylor at 22, Memphis at 23, Texas A&M at 24, born in a second, and then at number 25, Cincinnati. I also have SMU at 21. They came back down 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter against, I would say, a physical Tulsa team. Listen, that's not a very good win, but the way I did the AP poll this week is that I just moved everybody up, and then 23, 24, 25 were open slots because I dropped Washington, I dropped Michigan State, and I dropped Oklahoma State. So what I did was just move everybody up and make 23, 24, and 25 open. But SMU, in my opinion, they're undefeated. They have a game coming up against Memphis here in the next upcoming weeks. That's going to be a huge game right there. That will tell you a lot about both SMU and Memphis. And I do want to speak on Memphis after the video real quick, because Memphis was the 26th team in my rankings. Like Memphis barely just missed out on my rankings. The number 25 spot was between Baylor and Memphis. Number 22, Wake Forest. You look at Wake Forest, they have a quality win against North Carolina. They're beating everybody on their schedule, so they're undefeated. I picked them at number 22. I think they're a decent team. I do think they will lose to Clemson, probably one other game somewhere this year at least, but we'll see what happens. But Wake Forest, they're undefeated. They deserve, in my opinion, with that resume, to go ahead and be in the AP top 25. They're at number 22. Now 23, 24, and 25 are all new teams. I dropped Oklahoma State, who was 25 last week. I dropped Michigan State, who I think was number 20 or maybe number 19 last week. And I dropped Washington, who was number 15 last week. And then my new 3 teams, number 23, Cincinnati. Cincinnati's a good team. I was wrong about them. I'll admit it. I thought they looked very flat against UCLA, and I wasn't really wowed by the team. Then they went ahead and they beat UCF. Their only loss is a shutout to Ohio State. That is the one bad thing. Your loss is a shutout, but it is to Ohio State, who's number 2 in my poll. So it's not really a bad loss, but you wish you would have scored points in that game to maybe boost your resume up a bit more. But that UCF win is a big win. And Cincinnati, they look like a top 25 team. I picked them at number 23. Number 24, I put Arizona at number 24. And I want to make an argument here for Arizona over Texas A&M, because Texas A&M, let's be real, they don't deserve to be in the pool right now. I look at Texas A&M, yes, the losses are to Clemson and Auburn. The Clemson loss, okay, so on the road, we'll let that one slide. But they look nowhere close to Clemson, and they look nowhere close to Auburn until the final 5 minutes of that game. I think the Auburn loss was very disappointing. And then they barely beat Arkansas. I know it was at a neutral site game, but that game's at a neutral site game every year, and they barely beat them. Texas A&M doesn't really have a good quality win on their schedule. Look at Arizona. Arizona, they lost to Hawaii in week 1. Hawaii only has 1 loss as well, so that loss is not looking as bad for Arizona, and not even though Hawaii did turn over the ball 7 times. Arizona, they have wins over Colorado. They have a win over, I think, UCLA as well. Colorado's a decent win, and then they also have a win, I believe, against Texas Tech, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Texas Tech. They have, in my opinion, at least 2 quality wins right there against Colorado and Texas Tech. I think that's good enough to put them over Texas A&M, and I'm going to put Arizona number 24 in my poll. They have a big game this week against Washington. They can win that game. You'll see them in everybody's top 25 polls, I think. But Arizona, they have a good enough resume to be in my top 25. I picked them number 24. And then to round out my top 25 is Baylor. The only thing holding back Baylor, I know they're undefeated. The only thing holding them back is that they have a very weak non-conference schedule. They have quality wins against Kansas State and Iowa State, but the non-conference is kind of holding them back. So I think the best non-conference game is actually, I think, Rice, if I'm not mistaken. But Baylor, they're number 25, and Memphis. It was very close between Baylor and Memphis. Okay, it was really close, but I gave the edge to Baylor because I think they have more quality wins on their schedule. Memphis's best win is Ole Miss at home, but they have a bunch of wins against mediocre group of 5 teams. So that's why Memphis is out of my top 25. But I do think Memphis does deserve a honorable mention in this video. And Minnesota fans, that's another team that is also undefeated. Congrats on being Illinois. All I'm gonna say is you don't have a quality win on your schedule, in my opinion, or a convincing win rather. I know that Illinois win 40-17. You're better than Illinois. We all know that. So that's why Minnesota was left off of my poll. They are in the coaches poll though. But anyways, that's my top 25. Comment down below. Tell me what you think. I always like to hear what you guys are saying about my top 25. Tell me your top 25. Tell me what you think about my top 25, the whole 9 yards. Thanks for watching. Hit that thumbs up button. Please subscribe to the channel. And this is McD the Beast here, signing off.